So today I'll be showing you how to make a little image that cycles between two other images. Now, first of all, we need the images. Oh well, we already have them over there. So let's just go over here and let's see, we have a red image here, a green image, and a blue image. And they're all the exact same aspect ratio, so there's not going to be any issues putting them all on the exact same background. So first, we'll need a quad, so we open our context menu with the dev tool equipped. So create new, 3D model, quad. Then we simply open this up by selecting it with secondary, opening it up with open inspector in our context menu. And here we'll see that currently there's a PBS metallic on it that is applied to root. However, what we want is we want to create a new material of type unlit. Then we just grab this unlit material, slot it into here, and as you can see, it's now white. Now next we can try out how this would look with this little red image here by putting it in, and it's a square. Well, how do we fix this? Quite simply, we go up to the quad mesh, and in here we can then change this to the actual aspect ratio 1920 by 1080. That's a pretty big quad. Well, luckily, if we do some simple multiplication and or division, we can just divide this by 100 or multiply it by 0.001, and there we go. Now we have some more reasonable values, and we actually have the correct aspect ratio still, because 1.92 by 1.08 is equal to 1920 by 1080. Those mean the exact same thing. Alright, so now that we have the red image out there, we just need to change it between red, green, and blue. Well, if we go all the way down and click Attach Component, we can then go to Assets, Utility, Asset Multiplexer, and then iTexture 2D is the one we want for textures. And if we add 3 slots here, we can grab our red image, click onto the 0th entry, grab the green image, click onto the first entry, and grab the blue images, and click on the second entry. Now, once we did this, we need to put the target in here, which would be the texture reference on the actual material, which we have over here. So we slot that in there. And now if I go to 1, it's going to be green. If you go to 2, it's going to be blue. Now, next, we could either use a time integer driver, which is in transform drivers, and then at the very bottom we have here time int driver, where we set the repeat to free, which the repeat always has to be 1 less than your last value, so free. Also, this is specifically for integers. For floats, this works a little bit differently. And then here we have the scale, which is basically how fast it goes. And we just grab the index and slot that in here. And you'll see that every second this is going to change now. If you want to make it take 10 seconds, we can just change it to 0.1. Then it's going to cycle every 10 seconds, and then 100 seconds is 0.01. And you could multiply and divide to get your exact value. However, that's a lot of math that we don't have to do. So let's just get rid of the time int driver, and instead we'll take out our FluxTip. Now, FluxTip can be found in Inventory, Resonite Essentials, Tools, and it's right next to the dev tip. So we'll open up the Nodes browser. Then we'll grab the index here and make a source by simply grabbing it, opening a context menu and pressing onto source. Then what we first need is an actions write, value write, and we'll just choose bool because the moment we plug this in like this, it's going to overload and select the right variant. There's no need to actually search down for it, even if it's right there. Just do what is the fastest for you. Then we go all the way back, and we'll need an operator, addition, and again, don't care which type, we'll just overload it. Which, as long as you're working with simple types like this, you can speed up your work a lot by simply using overloads. If you're working with more complex types, there may not always be a proper overload. Alright, so now we have a simple system that basically just adds 1 to our existing value and then writes that back to the value here. Now the issue with that is that currently we're going to be going to 2. However, the next value here is going to be free, so if I click that, it's red. If I click it again, it's green. If I click it again, it's blue. So it still works. However, that looks a bit dirty, and if ever we get 1, 2, 3 more slots, you'll see immediately we are now actually having the issue that, well, it's white because we added more stuff. So in order to keep our values clean, what we'll actually do is we'll go to math next. And math, at the very bottom, we have something called a value repeat. Then again, we get one that we can use and overload it to integer, set the length to 2. And what this is basically going to do, it's going to make sure that the value here can never, let me move it like this, can never be above 2. As you can see, it's 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. And it's going to repeat that value like that. Similar to, for example, a modulo. So then we align this like this, plug this into here, and as you can see, now the value stays nice and clean, and we don't have to worry about these values here being out of range. Despite it still working, but if you do want to work with it in nicer ways, it's always good to keep your numbers in range, and also you could run into issues where, for example, your number gets so large that it overflows, and you don't want that. Just keep it in range. Alright, so now that we have this, we just need to automate it. The way we automate this is we just go to flow. Then we can go to timer, which is right here. We can give an interval, which is an interval in seconds. So we'll simply say, well, we want it to update every 5 minutes. That is 300. Now, I assume you understand the math there, because this is seconds, so 60 seconds is a minute. 300 is a multiple by 5 of 60. So that way we get 300 seconds is 5 minutes. However, right now the issue would be that this fires off of every single person, and that is not the most efficient. So what we'll do instead is we'll actually go down here to users, and we'll be using the get active user node here. However, since we do not need a slot reference right now, because this is all going to be self-contained on there, we'll actually use get active user self instead. Now what the difference is between this here and this here is that this is the same node, basically, just this here directly references itself on here. So then we simply plug that into here with a drive, and currently it's null. Well, that's because no one is touching this. If someone touches it, you can see the user assigns. However, we also want this to keep updating even if no one is holding it, because maybe it's just an item in the world. So what we'll do then is we'll get the host user. And oh boy, we can't use more than one user reference. They'll just swap around. So what we need to fix that is we need to actually go back to operators. And in operators, we have something called null coalesce. And in null coalesce, we can simply in here search for user. And there we have null coalesce user. Now what this is going to do is as long as this here outputs null, it's going to use the second value down here instead. So as you can see, despite it being null, we now have a user here because it's using the host user instead. Then we plug this null coalesce into the actual user. And now regardless of whether there's an active user for the object or not, it's going to always update every 5 minutes. However, if there is an active user to the object that's holding it, the user that is causing the update is not going to be the host. Instead, it's just going to be the actual user that the item belongs to, and that user will then network it to the host, who then networks it to everyone else. All right. So that is essentially it, because now we just hooked this up to here, and there we go. It is now going to update every 5 minutes. However, to make it a bit nicer to visualize, I'll lower it to 3 seconds instead. So you can see, every 3 seconds, it changes. All right, let's change this to something nicer, like 30 seconds, so it's not that much. We select it all by holding down the secondary on our controller or pressing it on our keyboard. Grab the quad here, pack into the quad, and there we go. Now we have it in here. However, the one last thing you need to worry about is the fact that we're right now animating a material. Now, the ideal thing you do when you animate a material is that you actually move this material over onto the object you're animating it for. So by doing this, you then actually have it on here, and as you can see, we can see a change here. Keep in mind, though, that if you did this, there is now also most likely an empty object like this somewhere, which you just have to destroy. All right. Now we have our object set up. We have a material over here. All that's left to do is just to rename this here to image changer. And there we go. Now we have a pretty little image changer. It's going to update every every 30 seconds now because we changed that. But yeah, I hope this helped you. I hope it was understandable. And I hope you have a nice day. Bye.